I am sitting alone in my small rented apartment on my 28th birthday, and the silence feels heavier than it should. 2 years ago, on this exact day, my family kicked me out of the house I grew up in. The reason I refused to hand over my entire life savings to my younger brother for another one of his failed business ideas, I thought that was the end of our relationship. I thought the worst was behind me, but I was wrong. Because now, after 2 years of silence, they are back. And this time, they are not asking for money. They are demanding my house. Before we dive into this story, I want to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you are enjoying this, hit that like button and subscribe, because what they tried to do next will blow your mind. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. Let me take you back to the beginning so you understand how I ended up here. I grew up in a middle-class family in the suburbs of Cleveland, Ohio. My father, Thomas, was a plumber. He was the kind of man who believed in hard work and practicality, but he could also be rigid and unforgiving when things did not go his way. My mother, Patricia, had been a nurse before she retired. She was warm to everyone except when it came to fairness between her children. You see, my younger brother, Kyle, was always her favorite. It was not even subtle. Kyle was 4 years younger than me, and from the time he could walk, he was the golden child who could do no wrong. Then there was my older sister, Amanda, who was 3 years older than me. She had moved to California after college, started a family, and kept a safe distance from the chaos back home. I do not blame her. She saw the dysfunction long before I did. Growing up, I was the responsible one. I did my homework, got good grades, worked part-time jobs in high school, and saved every dollar I could. Kyle, on the other hand, dropped out of college after one semester, bounced from job to job, and always needed someone to bail him out. And that someone was usually our parents. They loaned him money 3 separate times for different ventures: a food truck that never launched, a photography business that lasted 2 months, a drop-shipping scheme that collapsed in weeks. He never paid them back. Not a single cent. But they never seemed to mind. By the time I turned 26, I had been working as an accountant for 4 years. I lived at home to save money, but I was not freeloading. I paid my parents $300 a month for rent and groceries. I kept every receipt, every record, because even then I had a feeling I might need proof someday. I had saved up $38,000. My plan was simple: move out, rent an apartment, and eventually save enough to buy a small house. I wanted independence. I wanted my own space. I wanted to build something for myself. And then, my 26th birthday arrived. I woke up that morning with a small sense of excitement. I was not expecting much, just a simple dinner with my family, maybe a cake. But when I walked downstairs, the air felt different. My mother was making breakfast, but she barely looked at me. My father sat at the table reading the newspaper in silence. Something was off. Then Kyle walked in. He had this energy about him, this overconfidence that always appeared right before he asked for something big. He sat down across from me and said he had an incredible opportunity. He wanted to open a bar in downtown Cleveland. He had found the perfect location. He had a business plan. All he needed was $35,000 to get started, and he wanted me to give it to him. I sat there staring at him, unable to believe what I was hearing. He did not say borrow. He said give, like it was a foregone conclusion that I would just hand over nearly everything I had worked for. I took a breath and said no. I explained calmly that I needed that money. I had plans. I was going to move out, start my own life. I could not just give away years of savings for a business that, based on his track record, would probably fail within months. Kyle's face turned red. He stood up and started yelling. He called me selfish. He said I did not care about family. He said a real brother would help. That was when my parents joined in. My father said I was being ungrateful. My mother said I had been living under their roof for years, rent-free, and now I could not help my own brother. I tried to explain that I had been paying rent. I tried to show them the receipts I had saved, but they did not want to hear it. My father cut me off and said, if I was not willing to help family, then I did not belong in their family. My mother nodded. She actually agreed with him. There was no birthday cake, no singing, no celebration, just cold cutting words. My father stood up, looked me in the eye, and said, pack your things and get out of this house. Today, I could not believe it. I kept waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was a joke, to tell me they were just upset and did not mean it. But no one did. My mother turned her back and walked into the kitchen. Kyle smirked like he had won something. My father went back to his newspaper. I packed my belongings in 3 hours. Clothes, books, my laptop, a few personal items. Everything I owned fit into 4 duffel bags and 2 cardboard boxes. I loaded them into my car and drove away. No one came outside to say goodbye. No one called to apologize. I was just gone. I called my sister Amanda that night from a cheap motel on the west side of Cleveland. She was horrified. She could not believe our parents had actually kicked me out over this. But she was 3 states away with 2 young kids and a full-time job. There was not much she could do except offer emotional support, and I appreciated it. I really did. But it did not change the fact that I was alone. For 3 weeks, I lived in that motel. The walls were thin. The bed sheets smelled like bleach and regret. I would lie awake at night, wondering if I had made the wrong choice. Maybe I should have just given Kyle the money. Maybe I should have sacrificed my future to keep the peace. But deep down, I knew that would not have been right. It would not have been fair. I called my parents several times during those weeks. No one answered. I sent text messages. No response. I checked Kyle's social media and saw him posting photos of some bar space he was scouting, talking about his big plans. Apparently, he had found another investor. Good for him, I thought bitterly. After 3 weeks, I found a small studio apartment. It was not much. 400 square feet, outdated appliances, a view of a parking lot. But it was mine. I signed a 1-year lease, moved in, and decided that if my family did not want me, then I would build a life without them. I threw myself into work. I took on extra freelance projects doing bookkeeping and tax prep for small businesses. I worked nights and weekends. I saved every dollar I could. I bought used furniture from thrift stores. I cooked all my meals at home. I stopped going out. I had one goal, and that was to prove to myself that I did not need them, that I could make it on my own. And slowly, painfully, I started to rebuild. 2 years passed without a single word from my family. Not on holidays. Not on birthdays. Nothing. In that time, I worked harder than I ever had in my life. I got promoted at my accounting firm and became a team lead. My salary nearly doubled. I took online courses in real estate investing. I read books on personal finance. I created a detailed plan for my future, and I stuck to it. By the time I turned 28, I had saved $85,000. I started looking at houses in the suburbs, something small but solid, something I could call my own. I found a 2-bedroom house in Lakewood, a quiet neighborhood just outside Cleveland. The house was listed at $195,000. It needed some work, but it had good bones. I made an offer, and it was accepted. I put down $45,000 and financed the rest. The day I got the keys, I stood in the empty living room and felt something I had not felt in a long time. Pride. This was mine. I had earned it. No one gave it to me. No one could take it away. I spent the next few weeks fixing the place up. I painted the walls myself, replaced old light fixtures, and cleaned up the backyard. It was hard work, but it felt good. It felt like I was finally moving forward. During those 2 years, I had kept an eye on Kyle's social media from a distance. His bar had opened with great fanfare. He posted photos of the grand opening, talked about how successful it was going to be. But 8 months later, the post stopped. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that the bar had closed. Kyle had run it into the ground with poor management and even worse financial decisions. I felt a strange mix of vindication and sadness. I had been right, but there was no satisfaction in it. Then one Saturday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID said Mom. I stared at the screen for a long moment, unsure if I should answer. It had been 2 years. 2 years of silence. 2 years of pretending I did not exist. But curiosity got the better of me. I answered. Her voice was sweet, almost sickeningly so. Brandon, honey, how are you? I have missed you so much. I did not know what to say. I kept my tone polite but distant. I am fine. What do you want? She asked about my life, my job. I told her I was doing well. Then I mentioned almost offhandedly that I had bought a house. There was a pause. Then her voice lit up with exaggerated excitement. Oh my goodness, that is wonderful. Your father and I are so proud of you, proud. The word felt hollow. Where had that pride been 2 years ago when they threw me out? She went on to say that family was the most important thing in the world, and that it was time for us to reconcile. She invited me to dinner the following Saturday. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to hang up and block the number. But another part of me, the part that still hoped for some kind of closure or apology, said yes. That Saturday evening, I drove to my childhood home. The driveway looked the same. The front porch still had the same creaky step. My mother opened the door with a wide smile and pulled me into a hug that felt more performative than genuine. My father shook my hand firmly and said it was good to see me. Kyle was there too, sitting on the couch, offering a half smile that did not reach his eyes. Dinner was strange. My mother had made pot roast my favorite. We sat around the table and made small talk. My father asked about work. My mother talked about the neighbors. Kyle was quieter than usual, which made me uneasy. Everything felt too polite, too rehearsed. After dinner, we moved to the living room. My father poured coffee. That was when the real conversation started. He cleared his throat and said, Brandon, I know the last couple of years have been tough. I may have been a bit harsh. I apologize for that. I was stunned. An apology from my father. I did not know how to respond. My mother chimed in, saying that family was everything and that we needed to move past old hurts. Then Kyle spoke up. He said he was sorry too. He said he had done a lot of thinking and realized he had been immature. He said he understood why I had said no. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was real. Maybe we could actually rebuild something. But then my father asked where I had bought my house. I told him. Lakewood. 195,000. 2 bedrooms. Kyle leaned forward. 2 bedrooms. That is great. What are you doing with the second room? I said. I had not decided yet. Maybe a home office. Maybe a guest room. My mother exchanged a glance with my father. Then she said, Actually, we have been talking. Kyle is going through a tough time right now. The bar did not work out, and he is looking for a place to stay. We thought maybe he could stay with you for a little while, just until he gets back on his feet. I felt my stomach drop. Stay with me in my house. My father nodded. You know, son, family helps family. It would just be temporary. Kyle added, just a few months, man. I promise I would not be a burden. I looked at each of them, trying to process what I was hearing. After 2 years of silence, after kicking me out on my birthday, they wanted me to let Kyle move into the house I had worked so hard to buy. I said no. I said it calmly, but firmly. I told them I needed my own space. I told them it was not a good idea. My father's expression hardened. You cannot help your own brother. My mother's voice took on a wounded tone. Brandon, this is a family home. You are part of this family. I corrected her. No, it is my home. I bought it with my money. Kyle scoffed. Come on, man. Everything you have you got because you grew up in this family. You owe us. That was when I realized this was not about reconciliation. This was not about family. This was about what they could take from me. I stood up and said I was leaving. My father said, If I walked out that door without helping Kyle, I should not bother coming back. I did not respond. I just left. The harassment started almost immediately. A week later, Kyle showed up at my front door with a backpack and a duffel bag. He said our parents had kicked him out and he had nowhere else to go. He asked if he could just crash on my couch for a few days. I told him no and closed the door. He did not leave. He sat on my front porch for hours. He called my phone over and over. When I blocked his number, he texted from different numbers. My mother called crying, saying I was forcing my brother to sleep in his car. My father called and threatened me, saying I would regret this. I blocked them all, but they kept finding ways to contact me. They created new email addresses. They sent messages through social media. One night, I came home from work and found Kyle asleep in a sleeping bag on my front lawn. I called the police. They asked him to leave, and he did. But not before making a scene, telling the officers that I was a heartless brother who had turned my back on family. 2 weeks later, I received a certified letter from a law firm. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a legal document. My family was suing me. They were claiming that my house was a family asset. I read the letter 3 times, unable to believe what I was seeing. According to their lawyer, because I had grown up in their home and had been supported by them for years, the money I used to buy my house was partially derived from the financial support they had given me. Therefore, they argued they had a legal claim to a portion of the property. They were demanding that I either transfer partial ownership to Kyle or pay them $40,000 in compensation. I called my sister Amanda. She was as shocked as I was. She said, "I cannot believe Mom and Dad are actually doing this. This is insane." I immediately contacted a real estate attorney named Michael Thornton. He reviewed the case and told me it was completely without merit. He said my family had no legal standing, but that did not mean the case would not go to court. It would cost me time, stress, and money. Legal fees would run between $7,000 and $10,000. I told him I did not care. I was not going to let them take what I had built. I was going to fight. 6 weeks later, we were in Cuyahoga County Court. My family had hired an attorney named Sarah Vincent. She stood before the judge and made her case. She argued that I had been raised and educated by my parents, that I had benefited from living in their home, and that I therefore had a moral and legal obligation to share my assets with my family. My attorney, Michael Thornton, dismantled her argument piece by piece. He presented my financial records, showing that I had been employed since I was 18 and that every deposit into my savings account had come from my own wages. He presented the receipts I had kept, proving that I had paid my parents $300 per month for rent for 3 years before they kicked me out. He presented copies of the threatening emails and text messages my family had sent me. He showed the court that I had bought the house entirely with my own money 2 years after being forced out of their home. The judge asked my family's attorney if they had any documentation proving they had contributed financially to the purchase of my house. She did not, because they had not. The judge did not hesitate. He dismissed the case entirely. He called it frivolous and a waste of the court's time. Then he ordered my family to pay my legal fees, which totaled $8,500. He also issued a restraining order prohibiting my parents and Kyle from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my home. I sat in that courtroom and felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was over. I had won. The first few days after the trial were strange. I had won, but it did not feel like victory. I had lost my family completely. There was no going back now. I found myself wondering if I had been too harsh, if I should have tried harder to compromise. But every time I thought that, I remembered the lawsuit. I remembered them trying to take my home, and I knew I had made the right choice. My sister Amanda flew out to visit me for a week. We spent a lot of time talking, processing everything that had happened. She told me, "You did the right thing. You protected yourself from people who were trying to exploit you. That is not being selfish. That is self-respect." Amanda cut off contact with our parents after the lawsuit. She said she could not be part of a family that treated people that way. I appreciated her support more than I could say. Over the next few months, I started going to therapy. I needed help processing the grief of losing my family and learning how to set healthy boundaries. My therapist helped me understand that not everyone is capable of change, and that sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. I also started getting involved in my community. I joined a local running club and met people who actually cared about me. I volunteered at a community center on weekends. And that was where I met Sarah, an elementary school teacher, with a kind smile and an easy laugh. We started talking, then dating. She knew my story. She understood. And she never made me feel guilty for protecting myself. A year after the trial, I stood in my backyard, hosting a small barbecue. Sarah was there flipping burgers. Amanda and her family had flown in for the weekend. A few friends from work and the running club were scattered around laughing and talking. I looked around at the life I had built, the house I had fought for, the people I had chosen to surround myself with. This was my family now, not by blood, but by choice. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Kyle had moved in with his girlfriend and that my parents were still living in the old house. They never apologized. They never reached out, though the restraining order would have prevented it anyway. And honestly, I stopped waiting for it. I stopped needing it. I learned something important through all of this. Family is not defined by blood. Family is defined by love, respect, and support. Cutting off toxic people, even if they are related to you, is not selfish. It is survival. I learned that I do not owe anyone my future just because they gave me a past. I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and build something new. If you are in a similar situation, I want you to remember this. You deserve peace. You deserve happiness. And sometimes that means letting go of people who cannot see your value. That is not giving up. That is freedom. So let me ask you, have you ever had to set boundaries with family? Have you ever felt pressured to sacrifice your own well-being for someone else's benefit? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you are stronger than you think, and that you deserve a life built on your own terms. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember, the family you choose is just as valid as the family you are born into.